What's up, everybody? I want you to check those clocks because you already know it's that time. It is that time. It is time to talk basketball.
2, 1. Fuck it. Dang. Yep. You only got one basketball. Don't touch my basketball.
Dang.
No, hey man, dunk one. Dunk it out of here.
Come on, I ain't got none.
Get out of here, dog. You ain't got no chance to come back.
JJ Buckets here. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you've been here for a while, you'll probably know what one of these is, but I'll explain it to you anyways. It is the very last installment of the Draft Profile series for this season. Anyways, that is right. Today we are going to cover Scottie Barnes. Now, if you don't know how these work, which hopefully you do, I mean, I've been doing these for ages now, but the Draft Profile series is broken down into 5 categories where I'm going to talk about the strengths of the player, the weaknesses, the fit with the Raptors specifically, the case for drafting the player, and the case against. There was enough buzz around Scottie Barnes as a prospect and potentially the idea of Barnes sneaking in to the top 4, and where obviously Toronto is. So with that being said, I sat there and I was like, man, this will be the piece de resistance. This will be the last one in the series. The most obvious strength right off the bat for Scottie Barnes is gonna be his defense, right? Defensively, he is easily, undoubtedly, one of the best defenders in this draft class. I think there's no question about that. There's so much, and I mean so much to love about his defense. He is incredibly versatile. He is incredibly just adept at guarding both the perimeter and, you know, he can do it a little bit down low too, on and off the ball. Fantastic defender. I mean, just really team defender, off ball, on ball, whatever, you name it. Scottie Barnes is easily, I'd say, probably one of the 3 best defenders in this draft class in all likelihood. And to add with that, he adds some really potentially interesting upside with his playmaking capabilities. I think one thing that he really thrives at in particular is just that outlet pass. He's very good at eyeing it and very good at knowing when to throw it and when to, you know, start the fast break with that big go-ahead pass to one of his leaking teammates. He's fantastic, and I think he offers a lot of upside in that regard. I think you'd be quite excited about what he can do as a playmaker at the next level. On top of that, he has some good length too that helps him score a little bit. I don't think he's the most polished offensive player in terms of that regard, but I will get to that, you know, with the weaknesses. But for the most part, when it comes to at least using his length, using his strength and his athleticism and his lateral quickness, which is like, all those things are phenomenal. He is very good at using those to just get some easier buckets or to take advantage of his athleticism, particularly for buckets. He obviously takes advantage of his athleticism and his lateral quickness in particular, all over the place, including defensively, like I already talked about. But I'd say that's probably how he gets most of the actual scoring done itself. Past that, I think he's a capable enough rebounder that you'd be reasonably excited about what he can do as, you know, a point forward and just be an all-around versatile threat. And just, he's got a lot of raw gifts that you can tap into here for sure. I think he's shown enough instincts where you'd be excited about the idea of developing him. And frankly, with Barnes, I think I really hate talking about intangibles sometimes when it comes to the strengths, but I feel like I kind of have to with Scottie Barnes. His leadership on the court and just the enthusiasm and the motor that he brings for his team, it is very noticeable. He definitely elevates guys around him, you know, with that attitude that he brings onto the court, and he could realistically be such an asset to any team with that kind of mentality whenever he steps on the court. So when it comes to his weaknesses, I think these are plain obvious and kind of stare you in the face. For, I guess, a lack of a better expression. My 2 biggest concerns, and the ones that I'm going to focus on the most here, his shooting is bad. I think there's no way around that. He is not a good shooter. Mechanically, there is just so much inconsistency with the way that he puts up shots, obviously in particular from range. If you look at the percentages, sub 30%, I think it was around 24.7 off the top of my head for his 3-point percentage. Yikes. Yikes. Not a good shooter. Not a good shooter at all. Definitely will be one of the biggest aspects of his potential development, and whether or not he, you know, turns into an all-star, or whether or not he turns into a rotational like forward. I think his shooting is going to be one of the biggest, you know, determining factors of how his development goes. Excuse me. Past that, the other thing that really concerns me is I don't know how Scottie Barnes currently in the NBA would be getting most of his offense, in the half court specifically is what I'm talking about. He doesn't have a reliable go-to scoring move in the half court. I think I was talking about it earlier where he relies on his athleticism, his length a lot, and again, at the college level, that's fine. That's gonna get it done in a lot of regards where you're facing athletes that, you know, are just, frankly not gonna go past college a lot of the time. But when you get to the NBA, that lack of a bag, so to speak, is gonna hurt you. It's gonna hurt you a lot, and Scottie Barnes definitely needs to work on developing that. Again, the closest thing I could think of, like from watching his tape, the closest thing I could find to a go-to move in the half court is a push shot. And like past that, I honestly, I struggle watching his half court offense and figuring out how he's gonna get buckets in the NBA. So that will definitely be something that needs a lot of work. He's very, very raw in that regard, and he will need a dedicated development team to work on that with him. I'm not saying it can't be done, I'm just saying it most definitely has to be for him to tap into any kind of all-star potential that he might have. When it comes to his fit with the Raptors, there's a couple ways you can look at this. You can either envision a small ball lineup with Pascal, Barnes, and OG Anunoby being your forward group, or you could see him as a bench player. I think there's nothing wrong with a similar route being taken here to the one I suggested in the Jonathan Kuminga video, where you really take your time in developing this guy and you get potentially an all-star down the road. I think that's fine, but at the same time, I also think there's enough versatility, in particular defensive versatility, between a front court of Siakam, OG, and Barnes that you could probably justify getting away with him being a starter and, again, small balling with those guys. In any case, though, you know, it really depends on how ready you feel Barnes is to be, I guess, inserted into, you know, a potential starting situation, which, as I've talked about, is quite raw. You might want to take the slow approach. Realistically, though, when I look at Scottie Barnes, I feel like I see a little bit of a couple of players. I mean, he's very much so obviously a point forward. That I think that is the strict billing that you would see when you look at him. And I don't think there's one defined player that really pops out at me. Maybe a couple that I see shades of. I see a bit of Draymond Green. I think that's the biggest one that I see shades of, although you can obviously hear the reluctance in my voice. Again, I don't think there's a straight comparison and just make it easy, you know, for the audience, unfortunately. But I do think there is a bit of Draymond with him, maybe a bit of Ben Simmons as well, which is a pro or a negative depending on how you view that. But you kind of get the idea, right? He's just a very prototypical point forward without actually, you know, being a direct comparison with, I guess, a current one that is playing for me to give you. I do think the fit with Toronto isn't necessarily bad. Especially if, you know, trading Pascal Siakam is something that is in the cards, which I don't think it should be. I'm very, I guess, anti-trade Siakam. But if that's something that you want to consider, then Scottie Barnes probably looks a lot more enticing to you at that 4 spot. But that's a conversation that will be saved for the case for and the case against. The case for drafting Scottie Barnes, I think it's very similar to Jonathan Kuminga, where the upside, the raw tools and just the athleticism, all that good stuff. That's what you're looking at here, and that is what you're thinking, wow, we can really take and develop that and get a player that fits our system and has a high ceiling. I don't think he quite has as high of a ceiling as somebody like a Kuminga, but I do think he has a fairly high ceiling. With the right situation around him, he can definitely be an all-star. I don't think that's a stretch. Wouldn't necessarily bank on it, but I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. There's a lot to like about Barnes. In particular, the one reason why I would be, I guess, fairly confident that Barnes turns into at least a decent player in the NBA is because I think he has the right attitude. I talked about it in the strengths. I think the intangibles are there. This is a hardworking individual. This is a leader on the court. He strikes me, and I'm assuming here, but he strikes me as somebody that's gonna want to keep working and keep improving. There's a lot to like about that, and I think the case kind of writes itself from there as to why he should be drafted. And in particular, as I kind of mentioned in the previous section, if you do want to explore the idea of trading Pascal, I think potentially drafting Scottie Barnes makes a whole lot more sense there. I think the case against really speaks for itself as well. The upside is there. The upside is exciting. The upside is something you might be willing to hang your hat on if you're a team at like number 5. I think at number 4, the Raptors are obviously in a position to grab somebody from that elite group of prospects, whoever's going to be left over, whether it's Evan Mobley, whether it's Jalen Suggs. I don't think it's going to be Jalen Green or Cade Cunningham at this point from the looks of it and from some of the reports. It seems like the Pistons have zeroed in on Cade, and it seems like the Rockets have zeroed in on Green. So at this point, whoever Cleveland leaves on the board is probably who you're taking, and I think that is the biggest case against that. I look at somebody like Scottie Barnes, and I think the potential is there. The upside is absolutely there. You could get excited about this guy, but I just wouldn't see myself getting more excited about the idea of picking Scottie Barnes over an Evan Mobley, a Jalen Suggs, and frankly, maybe even throw Jonathan Kuminga into that group. I think Kuminga and Barnes are fairly close. I think it really is a dealer's choice on which one of the two you like better. But it's just, the case against really is there's probably going to be a better player on the board. And quite frankly, probably a safer pick as well. I know safe picks aren't always sexy and exciting, but in this case, when the safe pick is also a potential franchise-altering talent, I don't think you pass that up. So what do you folks think? Is Scottie Barnes somebody that has moved up your draft boards the longer this process has gone on? Because it does seem that way for some people out there and some, draft scouts, analysts, whatever. So if that's the case, there's a comment section and I want to hear about it. Do you think Scottie Barnes is better, than a Kuminga, potentially a Jalen Suggs? Because if you do, that is a spicy take and I want to see it in my comment section. Past that, you know the usual drill. Like the video, gets it out to a bigger audience, and that's the dream for me here, is just reaching a bigger audience. So if you're helping me do that, you are greatly appreciated. And if you are in my comment section commenting on a lot of these videos, appreciate that all the same as well. Really like interacting in the comment section with some interesting takes. It's always a good time. Past that, if you're new here, you know what I want you to do. You know I want you to smash that like button. Hell, even if you're not new here, if you've been here for a couple of videos and you just haven't hit that button for whatever reason, do it. The ratio of people watching these videos who are subscribed versus not subscribed is awful. Simply awful. And I want to fix that. And I want you to help me fix that. So hit that button. You can always change your mind in the future, although I don't see why you would. I'm a joy to be around. Other than that, that's going to do it for me today. I will see everybody next time.